Hello, and thank you for your interest in this presentation from the Albany Regional Museum. In 2019, we developed a 5-year plan for the rotation of our exhibit space. The result would have been a full changeover of our 1,800 square foot exhibit area. Then COVID-19 hit. COVID-19 forced us to make many changes. Our first change came March 13th, 2020. News of COVID exposures had been growing, and we received word that day that one of our own volunteers had been exposed. We had an emergency discussion with the board and myself, and we decided to do a temporary closure for the safety of our staff, our volunteers, and the community. A few days later, the governor of Oregon announced a 2-week shutdown to slow the spread. That initial 2 weeks stretched out, and now it's been nearly 2 years since this initial measure. During this time of ups and downs, closures and restrictions, the museum has kept its staff working, and when able, reopened to the public on a limited basis. We're thankful that donations continued to come into the museum, and were often more generous than in the past. Staff pivoted from event-based fundraisers to submitting grants for work that needed done, and we created digital programming to engage the public. We took the closure as an opportunity to complete a collections assessment using outside assessors. Not everyone had the same good fortune. The World of Speed Museum in Wilsonville, Oregon closed per state guidance for 2 weeks, but as it became apparent that the closure was going to extend out further and further, their board made the difficult decision to shutter permanently. When nonprofits such as museums close, they are required to distribute their assets to similar organizations. In June of 2020, we were selected to be one of the recipients. In total, we received 28 pallets worth of material coming to the museum. Items included derby cars, mannequins, display cases, computers, cabinetry, and a mobile wall system. You can see the derby cars at the front of this image. And here you can see a side view of the mobile wall system. 28 pallets of material required 2 flatbed trucks and 2 box trucks to transport. We had 12 volunteers and 4 staff help unload these. We had to rent a forklift for the day to lift the larger items off the flatbeds, and then volunteers actually broke down the pallets in the rain. I'm very thankful to City Delivery here in Albany. They donated their time and waived the flatbed rental fees for us to help get that done. The total value of the donated material from the World of Speed comes to $27,470. This is a large donation to the museum. And after bringing it all in, we had the material spread throughout all of the museum's community spaces. So again, we capitalized on the forced COVID closure, and we took the next month to plan where all the material would be stored. During this process, it became apparent that long term, we could not just store this and wait to use it. The material was taking up too much valuable space. Staff began to have a conversation of how we would implement using all of the new material. Particularly, we had to come up with a way to address the mobile wall system. One idea that was thrown out was to just empty all of the exhibit space and start fresh, utilizing the mobile wall system to create a new layout. This was a big proposition, but the idea stuck. Our collections manager, Amy Bozarth, began playing with this idea by creating a paper model to lay out different configurations of the system. You can see an image of the paper model here. We came to really like the idea of using it to start a new beginning, to have an attempt after the pandemic to start over and show off some more of the collection than we had in the past. As the idea grew, we moved from a paper model to a 3D model. This is the top-down view of the 3D model. You'll note that there are a few things that remain the same, including the entrance off of our parking lot and our front desk station with the archway. As the idea continued taking shape, we decided we wanted some feedback on what we should put into the new layout. So we surveyed the community to get a better understanding of the demographics of our visitors and what they would like to see. Using the survey and the staff knowledge of the collection, we selected topics to go on display. We'll cover some of the topics that we landed on here in this short virtual walkthrough. We start just at the front desk, coming in off the parking lot, and then as we enter into the main exhibit space, you'll first come to a set of panels detailing the Oregon Trail and the founding families of Albany. From the Founders section, we'll turn into the transportation area. We thought it was a logical move going from the Oregon Trail into general transportation. As Albany is known as the hub of the valley, transportation played a major role in building Albany into what it is today. On the right there, we have a large doctor's buggy. It's been in storage for quite a while, and we would like to bring that down and make it a centerpiece for the area, give you something to really focus on. We'll also be discussing waterways in the transportation section, and we thought it made a lot of sense going from using waterways as a form of transport to water for power. So up on the left, as you move past the hub of the valley, you'll move into our power display, and we will still have our small mill display available to look at. And we'll cover a little bit about the history of electricity in Albany. Then as we move past the power section, we'll be coming into local industry on the right. This is where you really start to see some of the new elements that we have with the hands-on pieces. So all of those kind of pipe-looking pieces, those are turnstiles. The flat, boxy pieces will have a picture on one side and information about the business or what's on the image on the back. And then from industry, we move into agriculture. Now we're going to cover agriculture at a high level. Not a lot of detail here in these images, but I'll share some that'll show a little more detail in some still images after this is over. But then we'll also be getting into dairies and talking about specific families and their histories. From there, on the left, those weird little cans that you see are grayed out, but that what will be inside are seeds of different types, because we're known as a major seed producer here. And then there will be a lift flap next to them so that you can look at the seed, take a guess at what you think it is, then lift the flap to get an answer. We're going kind of old school with some of the hands-on pieces. It's a little easier to maintain, but still very interesting and fun for kids. And we want to do lots of hands-on and really play up the idea that we're a very family-friendly museum. So now we're entering our new dedicated kids space. We've had a kids space before, but we're expanding it. We're going to be theming it around movement. Thanks to the World of Speed donation, we have those derby cars that we actually want to put out and on display and allow kids to climb into them, get in, play. We are hoping, if it works out, that we'll have a video that will play, so it looks like they're racing down a derby track while they're sitting and kind of playing and using their imagination a bit. We'll also have a little short Pinewood Derby ramp that they can play with smaller cars, a desk where they can do coloring sheets, a tube ball wall to do something a little different, some puzzles, and then floor mats for the little kids to be able to enjoy and get active too. So next, we're moving to our logging and timber carnival section. Logging has played a major role in Albany and all of Oregon, and we celebrated it for many years with the Timber Carnival. And the centerpiece to this section, if we are able to get the funding, will be a reconstruction of the Timber Carnival can. It was a jail cell that was used as a form of fundraiser at the event, and it'll have an iron set of bars that you can get behind for a good photo op, and we'll hopefully have directional audio so that when you step inside the can, you'll hear announcers from past Timber Carnivals, because we do have recordings of that, so it'll be a really immersive experience. We'll still have Timber Carnival buttons on display, hats, and other memorabilia from the event, as well as some videos to play. Now, to finish out the logging section of it, we also are trying to implement a little game you can play, where you'll be deciding how you would log a tree and get it from the forest to the mill. As we move out of that section, you'll find a little hallway, and it'll be divided between theaters on the right and a little photography area on the left. We've liked these two topics in the transition zone because there's a lot of options to change out these smaller displays with different photography businesses and different types of theaters. And then as we move through that little hallway, we'll come into one of our other larger areas where we're going to do the history of education in Albany. So we're going to start out by focusing on the high schools throughout the years. But we will also be taking a look at what it would take to go from 8th grade and graduate in 1910. So there's a little hands-on piece where you will actually have a reproduction of the test you would have had to take to graduate the 8th grade. So we're calling that Are You Smarter Than an 8th Grader? And we think that it'll be a big hit with adults and kids alike. And then as we turn the corner here, we'll be coming up on our architecture section. This is where we'll be getting into our own building's history quite a bit. And then that will lead from our building history into the history of Chinatown and local entrepreneurs. You may not know it, but we had a large Chinese population at one time in Albany, to the point that we had a dedicated Chinatown. And that is where our own S.E. Young building sits today. The Chinatown was unfortunately torn down in part to be able to move the S.E. Young building in 1912. And so we really want to dive into that story along with other small business entrepreneurs, local women, the history of really anyone who has just had a great impact on the community. Small business is such an important element to a town. And so that's an opportunity to tell lots of these smaller stories. And then we'll be coming back out now. You'll be coming right past the front desk again, and you can either exit at that time, or you'd be welcome to go back to our community room where we might be having an event. We will still have that space available to do our programming or to handle rentals. We'll also still have our reference room available. None of that is changing, and you'll still be able to come in and access the resources there. And so we're really excited for this set of displays. Here are some still images. You can see the colorized version of the displays now. So this is the hub of the valley or transportation section that we had right at the beginning of the walkthrough. You can see on the right the color version of the buggy. What I really want to highlight here, though, is the use of large-scale graphics. We really think that it creates a kind of wow factor. That's an element that we're going for with the remodel. We do plan to implement more text panels than we have in the past. And as we do that, we want to be equitable and attempt to tackle another issue we found on our demographic survey. Our demographic survey showed that we have 0 people who respond that they are of a Hispanic or Latin background. And we know that the local population has about 12 to 15% of that demographic. Our survey seems really off when we are actually hitting all the other metrics fairly well. To improve, we are following the school district's example by offering Spanish translations for bilingual families. The print panels will be in English, and we'll have a little QR code on each panel to scan for the translation. Here we have the industry section and the agriculture section. I'm highlighting some of the interactive elements here. You can see the turnstiles. You can also see that there is a video kind of in the middle of the photo and directional audio just above it. So we have lots of different types of interactive pieces. Some of it's tactile, some of it's audio, some of it's visual. You can also see the color patterns we're planning to use. You may have noticed while we were doing that walkthrough, it was all in grayscale, but we were still moving through it really quickly, and it may not have felt like you were changing topics. By using these different color patterns to give each section its own theme and feeling, it'll help identify that you've moved on to a new topic. So for example, we have agriculture that will have natural woods, and for industry, we're going with some darker colors and some wallpapers that'll make it feel a little more industrial. Here again, we're looking at the children's section. We've had an older demographic for a number of years, and so this is why we're putting this kids area front and center. We think that having it right along Lion Street will attract a lot of attention. It's very bright, very cheerful. It'll show a very active and engaging museum. So with the family seeing lots of things happening, lots of activity, we hope they'll be encouraged to step inside and visit with us. Now that you know our plans, you might be asking, how can I help? Well, if you're a local business or just a local person who would like to do a sponsorship, we're going to be posting those very soon. You can also just make a general donation if the sponsorships, once you see them, are a little too high for your liking. Now, not everyone can give financially, and that's okay. Instead, you could always volunteer with us, give of your time and your skills. Our timeline has us taking our current exhibits down in the middle of August of 2022, and then several months of work with things like putting our current collection items away, taking down the current walls, putting up new walls, painting, installing panels, and testing our hands-on elements. So there's lots to do over several months. If neither of those work, then another option is to become a member. Membership is the easiest way for you to contribute to helping keeping the lights on and the doors open. It starts at just $30 a year, and then it goes up with different benefits from there. The easiest thing you can possibly do to support this project is to help spread the word. Just let people know about this presentation. This project is supported in part by the Lane County Cultural Coalition, Northwest Natural, Oregon Heritage, Oregon Humanities, Pacific Power, and the State Library of Oregon. And so I'd like to end by thanking them for being early supporters of the project. With their grants, we were able to achieve 50% funding. That means that we have enough on hand to ensure this project moves forward in some form. Additional funds allow us to keep polishing up what we're providing and to create everything that I shared with you today. My contact information is on screen. You can let me know if you're interested in assisting the museum, or you can ask questions about the plans or other future plans that we may have. Thank you for your time today. Be safe and be well.